Animal Crossing New Horizons is a game that has a special place in my heart. I have over 4,000 hours in this game and started playing it back in April of 2020. It is a game that I just continue to come back to, partially because of nostalgia, but also because I really enjoy the game. But when you play a game so much, you start to notice its flaws and see things that you wish could be improved to make the game even better than it already is. AC&H is a cozy life sim about enjoying the small things in life. You get to enjoy life on your very own island and decorate it how you please, while making friends or enemies with the animal villagers living there with you. I think this is what has intrigued so many people about the game and continues to convince new players to pick it up. Even though New Horizons has been out for 3 years, I think there are enough new people that play that they could use some advice and recommendations. This section is going to be for newer players, so if you are not a newer player and would like to skip this section, please skip to the time on the screen. If you are able to get Nintendo Online, I would recommend doing so because it opens up the ability to trade with other players and play with your friends. However, the main thing to focus on should be getting bells since you will need them for pretty much everything later on. The best ways to get bells are through diving, selling turnips, or planting money trees, but selling weeds and fruit early on is a good idea too. Although the main focus of the game is decorating your island, which we will get to in a minute, there are many other things to focus on, such as completing each section of the museum, breeding all of the hybrid flowers, and increasing your friendship with villagers in hopes of getting their photo. I suggest joining Animal Crossing social media, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, Facebook, to make friends and find people to trade with. I think Discord is perfect for this because you can join a bunch of different servers and have plenty of people to trade with, sometimes even for free. As for inspiration, Pinterest is a good start since you can search by a certain term or phrase and find tons of ideas. I would also suggest checking out Animal Crossing YouTube and Twitch. YouTube has tons of content from villager hunts to build ideas to island tours, as well as tutorials, so it should be able to help you find what you're looking for. Twitch is good for making friends, seeing how other people play and decorate their islands in real time, as well as visiting Treasure Island since there are tons of streamers who let viewers visit for free. The most important thing to remember, however, is to have fun. Play the way you want to play and do what makes you happy. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the game intro. In New Horizons, you start by creating your character and then fly to a deserted island with 2 animals as your starting villagers. After your arrival, you are given the role of resident representative and are tasked with making all of the decisions on the island as well as giving it a name. Tom Nook gives you several tasks throughout the beginning portion of the game in preparation for your island to reach a 3-star rating and impress KK Slider enough for him to want to hold a concert there. After that goal is achieved, the story is essentially finished, and now whatever you choose to do on the island is completely up to you. Let's start with lighting. The lighting in New Horizons is reflective of real life with a day-night cycle, and as you would expect, midday in game is very bright, and late night is pretty dark, and can be hard to see while decorating if you don't have a light source. Shadows add to the realistic feel of the lighting and add dimension. They can change in appearance depending on where items are placed, as well as what time of day it is. Dusk and dawn are two of the prettiest times in the game, much like in real life. Watching the sun rise and set is breathtaking, and Animal Crossing is no exception. As the weather conditions change in-game, so does the lighting. It can be very difficult to see during a thunderstorm, for example, because clouds have completely covered the sun. At nighttime, tons of stars are out, and if you're lucky, you might even see some shooting stars. However, aside from the outdoor lighting, I think the best lighting in the game actually comes into play in the museum. Right when you walk in, if it's daytime, you can often see the sunlight streaming in, as well as whatever the weather is outside reflected in the back window. The lighting in the art exhibit is the most straightforward and feels like what it is, an art gallery. It makes sense for the space and makes the art the center of attention. The fossil exhibit is much darker and feels devoid of life in comparison to the other sections of the museum, which I think is fitting since it is the only section that has creatures in it that have gone extinct. I think this was a nice touch and adds some more dimension to the fossil exhibit. In the fish exhibit, the lighting feels colder at times, and it feels like you're underwater with the fish, which I think was a good choice visually. My favorite section of the museum, though, especially in terms of lighting, is the bug exhibit. Especially the butterfly room, which has a gorgeous fountain in the center and a large beam of light pouring in through the back door. It is absolutely gorgeous. Aside from the museum, there is also house lighting, but that isn't nearly as interesting and actually stays fairly simple unless you buy Happy Home Paradise, and play to the point where you can actually start using different lighting colors and intensities in your home. This can add a lot to interior spaces, especially because color often conveys mood in lighting, and can influence how a person feels when they see that room with a different color of lighting than the standard one. Now on to graphics. I think New Horizons graphics are very cute and one of the most charming parts of the game. For me, graphics often determine whether I want to play a game because if I don't like how the game looks, I won't want to play it for very long, even if it's fun. I think the cute 3D semi-realistic graphics work super well for Animal Crossing, and I think that's why so many people have picked up the game. I love that you can see so many different textures in the game as well, such as the texture of the grass, the detail on the leaves, fur on the villagers, and so much more. One big drawback though, and something that detracts from the graphics a bit, is how much the game lags on islands that are more cluttered with stuff. It takes a while to load in, and sometimes you appear to walk in slow motion in certain areas while the game tries to catch up to the character and everything going on the screen. Additionally, ACNH has a warm, welcoming atmosphere. The visuals, lighting, and sounds make you want to stay there and work on your island more, and everyone in the game seems to welcome you with open arms. The lighting feels very cozy and comforting, the music is relaxing to listen to, the sound effects are satisfying, and the combination of all of those together make the player feel relaxed. Let's take a moment to appreciate how pretty and relaxing the game can be. The music in the beginning of the game, before Resident Services upgrades to Attend, is so relaxing I could honestly listen to it for hours on end and not get tired of it. There's something that just feels so nostalgic about it after you've played past that point and have to hear the hourly music instead. But when Resident Services upgrades, that music is replaced by new music that changes every hour and is locked to a specific time. It can get annoying because it's repetitive, especially if you tend to play around the same time every day. Also, the Dodo Airlines music is annoying after the first few times you hear it and gets really repetitive if you travel a lot or go on longer villager hunts. It's catchy, but annoying. The worst part about the music in Animal Crossing is that you can't turn it off without muting your Switch. Unlike most games, New Horizons doesn't have a menu for you to access to adjust the volume of music and sound effects separately or even mute them if you desire. I personally enjoy the sound effects and like to listen to them when I play, but that means I have to hear the music too because I can't get rid of it. With that being said, I don't mind not being able to disable the music in the winter or during the different holiday events in game, because the music for holidays fit them pretty well, and I think they add to the atmosphere while playing through them. The Halloween music is especially good. It's also just a nice break from having to hear the same music all the time. The winter music is superior though, because it elevates the normal hourly music, like including jingle bells in the background. It just kind of feels very different from the other seasons. Have a listen. Similarly, the sound effects add so much to the game. They feel charming, relaxing, are often satisfying, and haven't really gotten annoying in all of my hours of gameplay. There are sound effects for everything you do in game, such as pulling weeds, walking, etc., and I don't feel the same playing without them. They also show the attention to detail Nintendo has, like shoes sounding different walking on grass than they do running around the museum or in the airport. And the shoes will make different sounds depending on what shoes you're wearing. However, one complaint I do have about the sound effects is that waterfalls are so loud in game that it detracts from the relaxing atmosphere. They are beautiful, so it's disappointing that they're so loud because I feel like it's harder to fully enjoy and appreciate them at that volume. The gameplay in Animal Crossing is pretty straightforward, and most of the mechanics are learned in the tutorial or the beginning portion of the game. Every day in the game is slightly different, and there are different things to do each time, but this is where most of the issues that I have with Animal Crossing come into play. For example, there is a ton of dialogue in the game, and no way to skip through it if you've read it before, aside from mashing B, which can get annoying. While it makes the dialogue faster, it doesn't actually skip it, so it still takes a while to get through. I find this the most annoying in the airport when I go on villager hunts and have to tell Orville where I want to go. There is no way to skip his dialogue after you've heard it, so you are forced to speed through it as quickly as possible. There is also no way to skip from Mystery Island to Mystery Island, so you have to tell Wilbur you want to leave, then talk to Orville again and hope you select all of the correct options while speeding through his dialogue, or you will have to start all over again. This gets annoying very quickly. Also, New Horizons doesn't have a ton to do in terms of multiplayer aside from watering flowers, seeing the new areas your friend has made on their island, trading, or doing bug or fishing tourneys. but the tourneys get old after you've played through them once or twice. Even more annoying is the fact that when you're going to visit someone's island, only one person can travel at a time, and because there is a loading screen that lasts a while, you are unable to move and have to sit through the same sequence each time. This isn't that much of a problem if only 1 or 2 people are visiting, but when you get around 5 or 6, you're constantly having to stop what you're doing for someone to fly over, because if you have your phone, chat, or inventory open, the person trying to fly in can't travel there. You can also only craft 1 item at a time. Bulk crafting doesn't exist, so even if you have the materials to make 10 garden benches in your inventory, you have to craft them all individually and spam B to craft the item faster each time. Otherwise, you will craft 1 item slowly, then have to select whether you want to keep crafting and repeat the process for the rest of them. You also can't craft from items you have in storage when you're inside your house, and have to open up your storage, pull the materials out, and then select your crafting table and choose the crafting option. Visiting the shops can take a while too, depending on what you're buying. If you want to buy multiple things in the same clothing category in Abel's, get comfortable because you'll be there for a while. Since there is no cart option, you have to select 1 item from that category to buy, then go back into the fitting room and repeat the process each time, hoping you don't accidentally buy the same thing twice. And Nooks isn't any better because buying in bulk isn't really buying in bulk. So you're only able to buy in increments of 5, and if you want a substantial amount of, say, white Cosmo seeds, you have to keep track in your head while buying them of how many you've purchased. Leaf operates the same way when you're buying from him, which is even more annoying because I feel like more players tend to buy bushes in bulk. So if you want 50 of them, you'll have to count and hope you don't lose track, or you'll have to select all of the dialogue options again to buy more to get to the amount you want. Also, laying down pathing, custom designs, or terraforming can only be done 1 tile at a time, so much like everything else, it can be quite time-consuming. One of the most disappointing features of gameplay, in my opinion, is that the villagers don't really have much personality. Sure, there are different personality types, but they only have a couple of preset lines of dialogue that they'll say in casual conversation. And if you have 2 villagers of the same type, they often tend to repeat the same thing that the other villager of that type said. You have to talk to them twice to get better dialogue, and that takes time. And even then, they might repeat something they've said before. The only time it tends to get interesting is when you have villagers talking to each other, since there will be a bit more story here, and you'll get a little insight into what your villagers might be up to when you're not there. But even that can get repetitive. I've had multiple islands and heard some of the same conversations multiple times depending on what personality types I have on my island. I just really wish that we had gotten more dialogue from the villagers with the 2.0 update, because even giving them a little bit more personality would have made me actually want to talk to them instead of getting villagers because they fit the theme I'm going for on my island, because honestly, talking to them gets boring very fast. Another thing that is really annoying about New Horizons is that you're only allowed to have 1 island per switch, which means if you make a second profile, that profile will have to move to the same island as the original one. This forced people to have to buy a second Switch and potentially a second copy of Animal Crossing if they wanted to have a second island. Otherwise, they had 2 options when they finished if they wanted to move on to a new theme. They could either flatten their island or restart. Restarting meant completely erasing all of the progress made in the game. On the plus side, if you saved your island as a dream address and then deleted your save data, the dream address would remain as it was when you saved it. But losing all of your progress and items in a game you've put a ton of time into usually isn't something anyone enjoys, which is why some players prefer to flatten their island instead. While you get to keep all of your stuff and your villagers that way, if you resave a dream address, it will change and replace the old one. Flattening also takes a ton of time, usually hours and sometimes even days if you're flattening your entire island, mainly because you have to pick up all of the items you've placed, put them somewhere, dig up the flowers and trees since you can't terraform with those things in the way, and being able to have multiple islands would have saved people from having to do this. I think it would have helped increase the game's longevity so much, and I don't understand why we weren't given the option to do that. Next, we are going to be talking about the story for the game in more detail. So if you would like to avoid spoilers if you're a new player, please skip ahead to the time shown on the screen. Otherwise, stay tuned. You start the game by arriving at an airport where you are greeted by Timmy and Tommy. They have you choose your appearance, name, and birthday along with your starting map. Then you arrive on the island with 2 starting villagers and are asked to make some things for Tom Nook in preparation for the new island. After that, he asks you all to suggest a name for it, and of course, the name you enter is what is chosen. Since you did so well picking a name for the island, Tom says that makes you qualified to be the resident representative and make all of the important decisions. If you keep talking to him, he will have you go out and find some villagers to invite to the island and decorate with the items you find and craft in hopes of increasing the island's rating to 3 stars. He hopes that this will get KK Slider to agree to hold a concert there. Once 3 stars is achieved, Isabel will read a review of the island left by KK, and then Tom calls KK and asks if he would consider performing on your island. KK agrees, and the next day he shows up and holds a concert for you and the current residents. Afterwards, he gives you some words of encouragement and then sends you on your way. The next morning, Tom Nook gives you the Island Designer app so that you can start terraforming and waterscaping, and after this, the story essentially ends. The credits roll after the KK concert, and you are left to do as you please. The only other story you can really get in the game comes from villagers, unless you buy the Happy Home Paradise DLC. The villagers tend to have conversations with each other, and if you talk to them, they will often include you in it. These tend to be shorter side stories that don't typically relate back to the main one at all. The only other story that's introduced is in Happy Home Paradise. As you play through the DLC and complete vacation homes, you unlock more of that story, but that's completely separate from the KK Slider storyline and can't be accessed without the DLC. While New Horizons has many flaws, I still love it. It has a very special place in my heart, because not only did it get me through everything that was going on in 2020, but it also introduced me to some of the most amazing people who I consider my best friends. Even though I eventually experienced burnout and stopped playing for a few months, I constantly find myself going back to Animal Crossing because of how it makes me feel when I play. So if you are the kind of person who likes cute, relaxing games with adorable graphics, I cannot recommend New Horizons enough. I think it is definitely worth the $60 price point, especially now that 2.0 has been released and the game feels fully complete, even though some features are a bit lackluster. I put so many hours into this game and it essentially paid for itself, and I got so much content out of it for the price. Happy Home Paradise is also worth the $20 price point if you're into interior decorating or design, or think that being able to renovate villagers' houses is important. But if you don't care about that stuff, don't worry about getting it. New Horizons is already expensive enough. But with all of that being taken into account, I think Animal Crossing is worth the investment and is a game I can see myself playing for years to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more reviews like this, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!